what I want to do is I want to kind of give you an overview and a couple little stories, and then I want to let her speak. She does way better at telling stories than I do. Surprising, I know most ministers were really good at fabricating stories, but she's really good at telling them. But of course, first we want to say thank you, the opportunity just to go. It's awesome. Brother Bob and Miss Angelique have been there a long time. They said 40 years doing this, and so it's amazing the work they do, the groundwork. I mean, you go and people know him and they love him, and they just, he just fits right in. Other than he is a gringo, he fits right in. And they don't see a lot of people with white hair, so he says that's always interesting as well. But even us just getting there was a God thing. When we left out of New Orleans and flew to Houston. If you knew what was going on in Houston a couple Thursdays ago, it was flooding. So we got there, 5 to 6 hour delay. Really just we're thinking, oh my gosh, are we ever going to get out of here? So we get on the plane. They open the airport up. They fly a few planes out. We're one of the last ones, or we are the last one out of Houston for the entirety of the day. When we landed in El Salvador, they said, hey, as soon as we took off, they shut the entire airport down for the following day. So it was really a God thing. I think there were 3 airplanes that flew out that day during that time frame, and we were the last one, which was a huge deal because Brother Bob had us slammed out. I mean, when we got there, we hit the floor running. We had a lot on our agenda, a lot of things to do. And so just being able to be there on time was huge. Even though we were late getting there, that was just our travel day, our Thursday. Friday, we hit the floor running. We went into schools, a couple rural schools, one extremely rural school. And when I say rural, even the nice schools are very rural. With no air conditioning, no anything nice. You pack a bucket of water in to pour into the commode, to flush the commode. There's no handles on the commode. You just pour water and it just flushes. I'm not sure how they've rigged that, but they've rigged that. And so there was no power. We had to change up and move into a little local church that was up on a hill. Really just a neat situation there. And later that day, this was one of the main stories I really wanted to share with you, though there's tons, and I can share tons, but I'm going to see what she wants to share. We were in the second school on the first day. It was a bit bigger of a school. The local pastor had really been working in the school. And what we do is when we were going into schools, we would be breaking up. We had 4 groups. And you'd have someone who was going to share the gospel. You had a translator and or another 2 translators. Sometimes we had 2. These were college guys, 20, 22 years old, just really on fire for the Lord. They either were skipping class or skipping work to be able to be our translators for the week. Just godly men and women. And our young man was Joshua. He was our translator. And we had another guy with us, Ernesto. And Ernesto was there. And then we had Samuel. Saul. But Ernesto was there, and he was going to give his testimony. What we love down there is you don't hear the gospel without a testimony of what's going on. It didn't matter if we were in a church. It didn't matter if we were in a school. Someone was going to give their testimony about either how God saved them or something that was major in their life God was working in, followed by the gospel. And so Ernesto's up here. I have no idea what he's saying. And he is just sharing his heart out. You could tell he was emotional, took his belt off, spoke on how he was abused by his father and things like this. And I look at Joshua, I said, this is going to be the shortest gospel presentation you've ever heard. Because you could just feel the Spirit of God in the place. We were in a classroom. And you could just feel the Spirit of God was moving in this classroom. And what's also neat is, unlike in the U.S., they will shut school down for you to talk about Jesus. We had one school, one whole day, they're just like, we shut this puppy down. There was no school going on. They'd be teaching a class, and you walk in, and they would say, a course in Spanish, they would ask, could we come in? And the teacher's like, yeah, sure. And they shut the class down. They're not worried if the kids learn anything else that day except about Jesus. But we give a gospel presentation, a young girl gets saved, and the teacher gets saved. And the power of testimony is huge. And I think a lot of times we lose that because we don't do that as much. But this young kid, it's the first time he shared his testimony in public. When we went out and we were talking to Brother Bob, and we're like, Brother Bob, we had a student get saved, we had a teacher get saved, it was awesome. And he's like, well, who did their testimony? We said it was Ernesto. He's like, really? That was the first time Ernesto's ever done in public, ever told his testimony in public. And the Lord just, was faithful. And I think so many times we get into a situation and we kind of question the faithfulness of God. And we wonder if what we have to say is powerful and important. And if it's what God's done, then it's powerful and it's important. And God was faithful in that situation. And in every, honestly, and it's unbelievable, in every situation that we were able to share the gospel, someone received Christ. Never in my life have I seen something like that, where people were so receptive to the gospel. But we had pastors that would come in and come with us and things of that nature. But, excuse me, on Saturday what we ended up doing was we went up top on this mountain and we had a youth rally, and Nicole's going to share some about that. But we were able to spend a lot of time with the youth from Chinamaica. It was just a great opportunity. A beautiful, beautiful place. Sunday we were at First Baptist Chinamaica. And Brother Troy, who is at Salem Heights, he preached that morning. I got the privilege to preach that night at a rural church on top of a mountain. You want to talk about people love Jesus. These people will walk up a mountain in dress clothes on roads that I promise you will twist your ankle on for miles to come sit outside or sit in a hot building and hear about God. And we don't even want to come to church. And it's beautiful, air-conditioned, comfy seats. We have to be more motivated as a church. We have to be more willing and sacrificial to do God's will, I feel like. But on Monday, we went into other schools. We went into one huge one. They shut the school down practically. How their schools work is they'll give you like a morning time and then an afternoon time. And so there we were able to go and share the gospel in that school. It was amazing. It flooded on us the end of the day, but we were still able to do it. And then the other couple of days, we were toured around, kind of shown what was happening in El Salvador, what goes on in the Kendrick Ministries and all that. They have an amazing radio ministry that a lot of people don't fully understand. They had 86,000 people listening to their radio at one point all over the world. It is a giant radio station. Of course, you can only hear it locally in certain areas, but you can get online and they have people all over listening to their radio station. So another ministry that they do that is just huge. It employs a lot of their ministers in training down there as well. So it's really a neat thing that they have going on. There are a ton of stories, and I could steal them all, but I'm not. And so I'm going to let Nicole share some of her stories, and then I'll play filler to any of the other ones.
Okay. So one of the most powerful things that I remember, well, obviously walking in on the first day, like the first time Daniel and I are walking in a classroom and the teacher gets saved, that was pretty incredible. But one of the things is we took, like he said, we took the youth down into Alegria, which is like a volcano, and it was just gorgeous, and like we went literally down into this volcano and stayed for the day. It was like a 9:30 to 4:30 retreat. And it was the youth of Chinamaica. And when I say youth, they literally have it's basically probably like 12, 13-year-old to, 25. It's like their youth and then their college students. And so we went down and we played some games, and, it was like an American youth retreat in a way, played games, all this stuff. But we were making, I remember, and this is kind of silly, but we were making sandwiches and we were putting mayonnaise, mustard, ham, and cheese on it. And I was like, okay, are we sure everyone wants mayonnaise, mustard, ham, and cheese? Because in America, somebody would not want mustard, and someone would want not ham, and then someone wouldn't want not mayonnaise. And they're like, no, they'll eat whatever you give them. So that was just a side note. But I was like, okay. So then we made all these sandwiches for, 60 kids or so. And then it starts pouring down rain, like monsooning. And so we're handing out these sandwiches. They're soggy. There's no preferences in them. They just have to get mayonnaise, mustard, ham, and cheese. And then they get under this awning, really like a hut, but it's like enough to squeeze all 60 of them in there eating their soggy sandwiches. It's pouring down rain, where, no offense to my sweet babies, but my kids on these rows would be complaining about the soggy sandwiches in the rain. And these youth were worshiping. They just started singing worship songs to the Lord and just worshiping God. And I just I mean, and honestly, I'm picking on them, but that's where I was maybe even was just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? It's raining. Like, they're going to be miserable. I'm miserable. It's pouring down rain. But they're worshiping God. So, like, they just showed me Christ, like, in and of themselves. And that night, Daniel shared his testimony, and there were 3 youth that got saved that night at the youth retreat. So that was amazing. And people had brought their friends. So I think that point where they were worshiping God all on their own, of their own accord, like, people were seeing Christ and seeing the joy and the gospel lived out right then. And that was just so powerful for me. Just working with the youth at school and working with youth here, it's just, I don't know, I was just amazed by them. But the other big story that we had there was Daniel did preach one night at a little church, and we made jokes about this church because apparently it's pretty new. It's a little country church. The pastor's fairly young, but it's a little country church. But we looked at that church and we're like, this church is not dying anytime soon, because they had tons of kids running around. Like, tons of kids. And they said that it had just grown so much in, like, the past years. Like, all these families were joining, and they had, I mean, so many kids. So, but at that church, that's the church we had partnered with and done a revival that Brother Bob had preached a couple nights before, and then we hadn't been back, and then this was like an actual Sunday night service, and they had revival, I think, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Well, I was sharing my testimony, and Daniel was preaching that night, and a girl came down and got saved after my testimony and Daniel's message, and the pastor told us that the Lord had been working on her heart she was there every night at revival, but that the testimony that I shared had broken her heart. So she probably had some things that was similar to what God had done in my life happen with her. And so that was just really, really super powerful and just really amazing too. But we were just overall amazed, and we've, like, come back and charged our youth. You know, we were amazed by their youth, and, like, you know, they're just walking in these schools and sharing the gospel, and so bold, and skipping class to do it. And another one of the things was we had a pool party, like, youth, like, they were telling us bye, basically, and it's one of the only pools in Chinamaica. Like, literally, there's maybe 2 in the whole, like, whatever it is of Chinamaica, and Angelique and Bob have it, and so all these youth, and it was probably about 40 of them, come over to Angelique and Bob's house for this pool party, but they do not think about gathering without singing worship to the Lord. So, I mean, we've had lots of, like, fellowships after church and stuff, and I mean, nothing wrong with that, but, like, where, you know, we just hang out and fellowship, and that's okay. But it was just crazy to me that, like, their mind was just so set on God, like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, we're at a pool party, yeah, we're hanging out and fellowshipping, but we're going to worship the Lord while we're here too, and worship Him in song. And then they started getting up and sharing their testimonies, and we were just like, this is supposed to be a fun event, and they are, like, just talking about what God was doing in their lives, and some of them it was what God was doing right that moment in their lives, and then some of it was their, like, full testimony of how, like, they had been freed from drugs or things like that, and it was just incredible. But like Daniel said, one of the biggest things that we realized was, you know, in Revelations it says that we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and so many times we don't talk about our testimonies, or we don't tell our testimonies, and our testimonies are the things that can't be challenged by someone else. You know, that's what God's done in us, and so there's no way for anyone else to challenge that. That's our story, and when we share that, it moves people. And so just to remember that, like, when we go out to share our story, to share our testimony, to talk about what God's doing, whether that's what He's done over the course of our life, or just even in this month or this season or whatever, sharing that is what moves people and brings them to the Lord. And I think we were definitely taught that that week.
A couple things I'd love to add is even when we were at the small church on Sunday night, when the girl came forward to get saved, we left. And I think that was the night we had pupusas, wasn't it? Yeah, I'd never had a pupusa. I am a fan. If you don't know what it is dough that they shove stuff into and then they deep fry it. This is how you know El Salvador is full of Baptists. They just said, we're frying this puppy. But no, we were on our way there, and we were riding with Brother Bob in his truck, and so we had to take a few vehicles. He just, I think, kind of wanted to feel us out, see if we were heathens or not. And we ended up getting to speak to him, and he gets a text that 2 more people got saved that night after we left. They believe in community. And so after church, they just were hanging out. They had like a hut up top, and there was an outhouse. There was outhouses, and we were talking outhouses where there wasn't the bucket of water, and you used some wire and you closed the door. Someone guarded the door, and it was dark, and you're like, well, Lord, here it goes. But we ended up they were hanging out, and someone actually behind the church was cooking, and they just were spending time together, and it's normal. They don't have to have a special event to spend time together. And the community of the church is real, and it was alive. And in just that time together, 2 more souls came to know Jesus. Even in our pool party where we were supposed to be having fun, there were 2 kids from Chinamaica who got saved that night. It's amazing to see the openness. And I asked Brother Bob, one of the things I've struggled with, and I was thinking, if I'm going to get emotional, I'll probably get emotional and say this, but I don't think I will. But if I do, y'all understand. I don't understand what we're doing wrong. And I say what we're doing wrong is, what is so wrong here? What's going on in the States? Why do we not have that heart where we will suffer just to get to church so we can worship together? That we'll sit outside after a nasty rainstorm and these tarps are torn, and this parakeet's harassing my wife because they're wild parakeets, and it was literally puffed up harassing her the whole time. And these people are coming from far, and their security team is out here, and they're opening their Bible, and they were a women's security team, but they probably because they were tough. But people wanted to be at church. People wanted to serve by sharing their testimony. Like these kids, Ernesto had the flu, and Ernesto is part of their drama team. I love old school ministry. And a lot of that stuff probably doesn't work here as much, but they have a drama team, man, and they come up with songs, and they do dramas to them. And Ernesto's sick as a dog, and he's doing this stuff. And Natalie, one of the girls, she has literally bruised her legs up on our first day on one of her dramas, where they're literally throwing her to the ground, bruised legs. So the next time she does the drama, she tries to catch herself and twist her ankle really bad. We're talking about kids who are not just sacrificing their time, but literally sacrificing of themselves because they want people to get saved. These schools, the nice school kind of reminded me of a prison, if you've never been to a prison. It was this 3-story building with a center stairs, and there were room off the sides, and there's no air conditioning, there's no heat, it's sticky, it's nasty. They had these little window vents that you turn, and the little glass vents would do this, and that's all they had for circulation. And these kids were just in here, and they're going to school, and they don't expect to hear the gospel that day. And just that even their willingness to be receptive to the gospel. It's just unbelievable. We had one of the guys who went with us from Salem Heights is a Gideon, and he worked with Brother Bob and some Gideons in the area to get Bibles to Brother Bob because he needed some more Bibles. So, we probably gave out 600 or 700 New Testaments. Every kid got a Bible. Brother Bob said, every kid gets a Bible. Every kid. Doesn't matter. We'd have teachers coming out of classrooms, hey, my class left before y'all got to my class, but could I have Bibles? And how many kids do you have? Every kid gets a Bible. They were all, of course, in Spanish. They were Gideon New Testaments that told how to be saved. We had pastors who were coming and partnering so that when someone got saved, they got their name and their neighborhood so they could get plugged into a church, so they could do discipleship. And so many times I was thinking, man, we can't even disciple them when they get saved in a church. We don't even focus that high. But we have these pastors coming out of the woodworks who have other jobs, who actually have to support themselves with secular jobs, who are coming and they're coming to these schools and they're getting these kids information, and they're going out and they're going to these kids' houses and trying to make sure they're getting discipled. It's a whole nother world. And we say a whole nother world, and we think, oh, well, it's because it's a third world country. But it's a whole nother world because they are just, man, it's ripe. They want to see Jesus. They want to know Jesus. And so I've struggled. I mean, I'll be honest. I've struggled with, like, what are we doing wrong? And there's 1,000 reasons could be. It could be because we're just too blessed for our own good. It could be that we're just blinded from casual Christianity throughout our lives. I don't know. But I know that it's amazing that people still really, really, really love the Lord, and they're chasing Him down, man. And it was amazing. I mean, to say it was amazing, we can't say it enough. The people were loving and caring and kind, not even just church people. I mean, just everyone was so kind and so nice. The reason we went is I told Brother Bill a while back, I said, it's kind of a shame that we have such a close relationship with Brother Bob and Miss Angelique, and that we attempt to support them in the best of our abilities, but we haven't been faithful in really going. And I know that some people aren't called to go, and I completely understand that. I get that 110%. But I think that we should have an opportunity for those who feel like this is an opportunity God's leading them to go. And so that's why we went. We kind of went as a vision planning trip to come back and to be able to plan something for, say, like high school seniors up. That doesn't exclude anyone here unless you're under high school senior. But then you'll grow into it. But the opportunity to go and to serve God in that way, it's real ministry. Brother Bob does not take groups. He'll tell you that. He's like, listen, I don't take groups. There's plenty of people here who take groups. I'm just not one of them. He said, I got too much to do. But he has been willing, because of his relationship with this church, and through kind of getting to know Nicole and I a little bit and us going, he's like, I believe that you wouldn't bring people who weren't willing to come and to do work, who weren't willing to come and to share their testimony, who weren't willing to come and to tell people about Jesus. Because at the end of the day, that's what he's there for. Him and Miss Angelique are there to win souls to the Lord. They're there to plant seeds. They're there to water. They're there to harvest. They're there for the long haul. And so we were grateful just to be able to go and support them, to be able to help them out in any way we could. Miss Angelique is a fine cook. Let me tell y'all, I don't know if y'all know her that well, but that lady put 6 pounds on me in like 6 days of eating. I mean, she can cook. I lost them, but I did have those 6 pounds for a little bit. But so we're excited. We're looking for next year to be able to bring a group. I'm not saying how big of a group it can be. I know in the past, Brother Troy from Salem Heights has brought very large groups. I'm not saying we'll be able to bring large groups like he, but we're going to go and we're going to continue to partner with them and to serve. I think it's an excellent opportunity just to be able to go and to see what God's doing. So many times we just get closed-minded. We get in our rut, and we get in our lifestyle and our belief and our thought process of what church looks like and Christianity looks like. And so many times that kind of leads us away from a biblical view of Christianity and a biblical view of church, because we just kind of get stuck in a rut. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to serve God and to see kind of what God's doing in a different part of the world. And so, listen, they're careful. No one got stomach sick apart from a stomach virus that was going around. And then I got something. I'm not sure what I got. They don't know what I got. Probably we're not sure it was the flu from Ernesto, because I was around Ernesto a lot, or what it was. But all in all, had a healthy group. We had an amazing time. And it just, I don't know. I don't think you can say enough for people's willingness to serve God like the young people did there. Their willingness just to go and to share what God was doing in their lives was amazing. It was spectacular. Man, they would walk miles just to come and go with us. I mean, they were just a very impressive group of young people, impressive group of people as a whole. We did get to see Pastor Salvador. I know a lot of people saw on Facebook, he'd got shot a while back. There was a lot of different issues going on, and he ended up getting shot, and it was a big deal, major deal. He was able to stand a little and walk without a walker, which was amazing. They said the man wasn't going to live, and they said if he lives, he'll never walk. and was walking mostly with a walker, but man, he ditched that walker and he'd start walking, and they said it was the most he'd walked since he'd been shot. And just an amazing testimony of a pastor whose willingness to serve his people just outweighs his own need. I mean, he was in pain a lot of nights, and he would come out to youth events and stuff. Just a wonderful testimony of God being faithful and continuing healing him. And so I know that some of y'all know him and know of him, and so I wanted to make sure we shared a little bit about that as well. You have anything? I've rambled long. Cool. But we do. We want to say thank you. Thank you again for allowing us to go. We've probably forgot some stuff that we would remember if you want to talk to us about it. It's been hard. People have been like, how's your trip? And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to lay it all out here for you because we're going to do that on Sunday night, and then y'all have to hear it twice. But we're excited. We're excited for what the future is going to hold with our church to partner with Brother Bob and Miss Angelique there and in the youth of Chinamaica as they continue to serve. And so we're very, very excited. I don't know if I can answer any questions, but does anyone have any questions? I'm not saying I'm educated enough to answer it. Yeah, she's smart enough. She could answer it. I couldn't. She can make it answer it in Spanish. But you don't have to know Spanish to go. We were blessed with translators, many, many translators. And it was interesting. If you've never spoken with a translator, it's really hard for someone like me who likes to ramble to speak and to stop and to speak and to stop. Some of the other people were like, hey, it's really great. I can think about what I'm going to preach. I'm like, yeah, but see, when I get to go, and I won't go. And so that was really interesting. But phenomenal people, phenomenal young people committed to the Lord and willing to translate. So we're grateful. Man, we're grateful for them. Yes, and Nicole got voted worst accent out of the group.
To translate.
Yes, sir. I ate more than one pupusa.
Oh,
yeah, we went and we ordered. Miss Angelique kind of fibbed to us and said they were small. Well, they were big. And so we all got 3 to 4 pupusas because they were only like $1.50. Let me tell you, I am fully Southern Baptist. I may look skinny, but, well, I went to town on some pupusas. They'll fill them with anything. Beans, they'll fill them with pork and cheese. They'll fill them with zucchini. And then you can't beat that. That's fine. That's some good eating. And so, yes, ma'am. Brother Bob and Miss Angelique are the people. The people. It depends. There is a good bit of agriculture in the area. Of course, there's a wet and a dry season. There's not like a summer, fall, winter. They have wet, which is rainy season. It's cooler. So actually, when we got there, it was cooler than it is here. Our entirety of the time there, our temperature was better than it is here. But the dry season, it's extremely hot, extremely dry. So there was a lot of agriculture going on. There is some industry even in Chinamaica, people just buying and selling and stuff like that. Of course, you've got your teachers and all that kind of stuff. And you had a lot of people who were drivers. They would drive people, or they would be delivery drivers. So Chinamaica's kind of in some mountains, and it's a smaller town. But there's another town that's a little bit bigger up the road, too, and some people go in there. But they have a lot of, in the bigger cities, they have a lot of industry. In San Salvador, I mean, it's their capital, and it's a big city. It's pretty Americanized. They had a lot of fast food restaurants and all, and they have this chicken place called Pollo Campero, and it's not the best, but it is chicken. The guy who was leading our group loves it, but I was fighting him on it. So there's a lot of industry very similar to here. And there's a lot of people who work, but they don't work as long. A lot of times they'll work early morning to noon, and then they're done for the day because they have stuff to do at home, or it gets really hot in the dry season. So they just, we're talking really hot in the dry season. Yeah, they actually do siestas. They believe in naps, and they're very productive. So I'm thinking we're doing something wrong. So they do. We asked. We're like, so Nicole said to one of the college guys, so siestas, like, that's a real thing. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, we have siestas. And even school, they have morning, and there's like 3 hours where there's no kids there, and then there's evening classes. And so in the evening classes still get out at like 2:30 or 3.
It's like a different set of kids.
Yeah, it's 2 different sets of kids.
Yeah, first set comes like
Yeah. And they still, like the kids travel. All our interpreters were, most of them were in the university. A lot of them were in English, and so they go. But their universities are weird. They had like classes. The English students went on Sundays, but that was the only day of the week they went to the university. So it's really interesting. The last year students. So it's interesting in that regard as well, kind of their time frame and how they look at stuff. And also, when Brother Bob says we're in a hurry, we're not. But if he says we're not in a hurry, we are. I've decided. But no, we were just blessed by being able to be there. If you don't know Brother Bob and Miss Angelique, you will not meet two more loving, servant-hearted people. I mean, they just love the Lord. They love people. They love to serve. And so they're just great people. Great people to go serve with. No, we did not have any moment of feeling unsafe. Well, before we went, we had a video call with Brother Bob, or a phone call, I'm sorry, and they laid a few ground rules. If he says get in the van or get in the house, you don't ask questions. He'll tell you later. You just need to get in the van or get in the house. No situations like that arose. He'll tell you what you can eat. So he said, just because I eat it doesn't mean you can eat it. I've been here a long time. And, of course, don't drink the water. So we kind of had our ground rules, but the ladies stayed at Brother Bob and Miss Angelique's house. The guys stayed at the radio station, which is maybe about, some of y'all know, but it's maybe about 200 yards from there where they live. So it's not like a super far walk, but it's down a road and then down another road. And we would go at 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and not have a problem. It wasn't, we never felt threatened, never had anything like that happen. Listen, they shut down at like 7, because it gets dark really early, and it gets dark. And so, like, people at 6, 7 p.m., they're in bed. They're going to sleep because a lot of them waking up early to start work early, things of that nature. So the city was shut down practically. Yeah, and a lot of times they have armed guards. Yeah, I mean, gas stations with a guy with a shotgun. Very, very safe environment. And they also, a lot of these homes have, like, gated areas. So you were very safe. What you guys showing? There were a lot of critters. I was telling you, there was a couple tarantulas hanging out on the church wall one night when we were walking back, because the radio station and the church were right there, and they're like, "Hey, there's tarantulas!" And the mama was real big, and some of the adult men that were on the trip were messing with Mama Tarantula, and she kind of reared back. There were cows all on the roads, horses on the roads. People would be grazing their cattle, on the roads, and you could tap them if you wanted. There were a lot of birds, of course. There was a wild parakeet that was, like I said, harassing Nicole. They have macaws and all that kind of stuff in the wild. But, yeah, there was a ton of dogs. There were dogs. We only saw 3 cats in the entirety of the time we were there, but there were dogs everywhere. And they said, don't touch the dogs. You don't know if the dogs are sick. So we didn't touch the dogs. There would be you'd be in church, and just walk right through. Just cut through the whole sanctuary while you're in church. And like I said, they were everywhere. But yeah, there was a good bit of wildlife, and so that was neat. We did get to go into a couple volcanoes. That was really beautiful. Nicole was picking on me during the slideshow. This was mostly my pictures, and I love taking pictures of what God created. I just think it's amazing to see what God's created. And just the fact of being able to go and to see the beauty of the dead volcanoes and all that kind of stuff. I know we're going to stop talking soon. It was really beautiful. Yes, ma'am. Technology, there's not much of it. They have cell phones. They have Wi-Fi that was kind of iffy. A lot of their vehicles were older. There were some newer vehicles, but the majority were older. They have a lot of cool trucks that we can't get here. But most people don't have electricity in the area we were in. Brother Bob and Miss Angelique do. But overall, most people don't have an abundance of technology. But they do. Most people have cell phones. Because you'd see a person riding a bicycle to work or something with a phone. Well, a car is so much more expensive than a phone. And the fact that they could use it to call their loved ones kind of outweighed a lot of things. So you would see a lot of cell phones still. And they had like oscillating fans in the church. It wasn't a whole lot of technology, mostly because of lack of electricity. Now, again, in San Salvador, the capital, it was just everything. You're talking major industry and video boards and anything you'd see here, which San Salvador is like 2.5 hours from where they live. So, and it's 2.5 interesting hours. If you've never, been in a, don't ever ride in the back of the van with Brother Bob because he respects the speed bump at the front of the van. But the back of the van, he's going to hit that speed bump. So no, but it was great. He's a good driver. He could drive a NASCAR, but he's a good driver. Anybody else? What you got? Oh, well, we had air where we slept. So that was completely fine. And yeah, so if you get to go, we do have air where we sleep. But in the daytime, it wasn't really hot because we were in the wet season. So it just was a little humid. But it was not that hot. It rained every day. But so that kind of helped cool it off as well. So yeah. Well, again, we're grateful. Y'all allowed us to go and allowed me a couple days to recover. That was unintentional, but you didn't want me here. But again, I want to say thank you. I want to pray for us, and then we'll be dismissed. I know that it's 7 o'clock, and some of y'all have babies to go get out of Awana. Let's pray. God, we just thank you so much for tonight, God. And Lord, we just thank you for what you're doing in other parts of the world, God. Is you don't have any bounds. I mean, you are where you are, God, and that's everywhere, Lord. And all you need is for us just to be your hands and feet, God, and others just come to know you. Lord, I pray that our church just has a fire for you, a fire to come to church, a fire to tell others about you, a fire to tell about what you're doing in our life and what you've done in our life, God. God, and we just praise you for the opportunity we have as a church to come and to partner with missionaries like Brother Bob and Miss Angelique. The work that they put in throughout the year, through all these years, Lord, that we can just be a small part partnering with them, God. Lord, we're grateful for that. And God, I pray that you just continue to fulfill them and fill them up, God, and just allow them to have the time and the energy just to continue to serve you, Lord, the way that they do. And God, just to give us the mindset that we don't have to go away, God, to serve you. And we don't have to go away to be missionaries for you, God, that you have lost souls right here, God, in front of us, Lord, that need you. And so, Lord, we just pray that you just light that fire in us, God. Keep everyone safe as they travel home tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.